This is the first of a lot of series that we're going to have here on our YouTube channel. I believe that it was really important for us to start with this theme in particular, big Bible themes. Sometimes when we're reading, we get really caught up with book, chapter, and verse that we hone in so ferociously on this one point and forget about what it means in the grand scheme. What is God trying to teach us through these verses? So I believe that this will help us as readers for three reasons in particular. The first reason, it will give us context. Throughout history, people have used the Bible to justify all sorts of racism and misogyny and violence and all sorts of evil things. But when you read the passages that they use, they're using them completely out of context, that they lose understanding because they want to read their own interpretation into God's Word. It's important for us as honest seekers to look into the Bible, see what God says, and interpret it based upon His nature and based upon the commentary that the Bible writes about itself. The next point, I believe this helps us with purpose. Perhaps you started this year really wanting to read through the Bible in a year. And you did really well, and then you got to genealogies, and you're like, I just don't get it. I don't understand why this is here. Or maybe it be the tabernacle and the temple or sacrifices. All those things, they just don't mean the same for us. We're not in that context. We aren't Israelites. Like, what does this mean? I believe that when you have Bible themes, you have an understanding of what God is trying to teach you, even in stories that may not directly apply to you, like the tabernacle, there's still things that you can learn from it. There is still teaching that you can get from it. You're going to hear plenty of preaching and teaching, but it's important for you as a follower of God to read the Bible for yourself, to understand it for yourself. And there's people that you can ask when you have questions, and that includes me. But it's important for you to be reading it with an understanding and a purpose of you're trying to have communion with your Creator. The last point I think is really helpful is when we understand that this all points to Jesus. In Genesis chapter 3, it is told to us that there is going to be someone who's going to crush the snake that deceived the world and caused man to fall into evil. And throughout history, people have seen Jesus as a controversial and a different character. Perhaps he doesn't exist at all, which some people believe. Or perhaps he was just a revolutionary. Or he was a prophet but wasn't actually divinity. But our entire faith is based upon the fact that Jesus was divinity, that he died and was resurrected on our behalf. So it's important for us to read the Bible story understanding that Jesus is coming. And the Bible does emphasize this fact, that God is going to come and redeem man from his sins. I spent a lot of my life not caring enough about the Bible, reading it as if it didn't matter. But the more I've read it, I see that there is a lot of intricacy and beauty in the Bible, that it has love and adventure, and there's incredible stories, underdog stories. There is the good versus the bad. Very obvious and very clear, but sometimes it's not as clear. It addresses suffering. And with all the poetry and narrative, the thing emphasized the most is hope. Despite the fact that man has sinned and we fall into this world that is evil and there's so much suffering, there's so many problems, through that, God intervenes so that we can have hope. And that's what we find in Jesus, and that's what we see in the big biblical story. I hope that as you follow with us on this channel and in this series, that we learn about how we can emphasize to read our Bibles better and what God has wanted since the very beginning, to dwell with mankind.